Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to this episode of the Second Bite Podcast. I'm really excited for this episode. I have with me Matt Sunshine, CEO of CSS, the Center for Sales Strategy. Matt, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Todd, glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
You know, Matt, you are literally about 4 or 5 weeks post-close with a really good private equity group, Gemini investors out of Boston. There's some I think some really good lessons, some things that we want to unpack. So I'm excited to jump in. I've got my deal trophy right here, right, as a tribute to a successful deal. I did want to, before we jump in, I want to thank the people at Team Shares, which is a private equity group up in Brooklyn, New York. They are our sponsors of the podcast. I've had good fortune of doing a really good deal with them. They wouldn't be a good partner for you, but for the client that I had who wanted a full exit from his business, what Team Shares does is they buy long owned, I should say, firms where the owner wants to transition equity over a period of time to the employees. So over the next 7 to 10 years, a majority of equity in my client will actually get to the employees, while the private equity group, the people at Team Shares, get a quality return on their invested dollars. So it's really kind of a unique approach to doing transactions. So thanks to our folks at Team Shares. But let's jump into the good stuff here, because again, you just did have a very successful transaction with the folks at Gemini that I know you are very focused on growing into something much larger. Let's go all the way back to the beginning and just start with an intro, because you were not the founder of CSS. So maybe you could tell us, what does the Center for Sales Strategy actually do, and who do you do it for?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not the founder. The company's 39 years old. Originally, the Center for Sales Strategy was started as a sales training company. I mean, that if you trace it back 39 years ago, it was a sales training company. Somewhere along the lines, probably around 2008, 2009, we made the conscious decision. I joined the company in 2006. We made the conscious decision to become a revenue performance company. We really wanted to make sure that we were in the business, not just of delivering training, but delivering revenue, helping our clients to actually get revenue from the work that we were doing. And when we started thinking about it that way, it allowed us to expand the products and services that we were able to deliver. Sales training companies deliver sales training. Revenue performance companies deliver revenue performance. So that led us, right? So it sounds
simple. I always want.
Right. It's what they want, right? And when we did that, it allowed us to expand what we were doing. So we got in the business of talent assessments and helping the businesses that we work with to select, coach, develop better salespeople, sales managers, customer service people. It got us into the business of providing lead generation, sales leads for people, sales enablement, doing account-based marketing, building sales playbooks. Of course, sales and sales management training and consulting is a core piece of our business, but it got us into doing compensation design and sales process improvements, leadership development. It also got us into the culture and engagement part of the workforce, because you can hire the best people, give them the greatest systems and process, provide them with leads and tools, but if they're not engaged and leaned into where they're working, they're never going to have success. So we stood up 2 different divisions. So we have the Center for Sales Strategy. About 12 years ago, we put in place an inbound marketing agency called Lead G2. It's a diamond partner of HubSpot. We're super excited about that. It's been growing super fast over the past few years. And a couple of years ago, we started that division for employee engagement and culture called Up Your Culture. And so it's pretty awesome to be in the revenue performance business because it just allows you to think a little bit bigger on how you can help people. To that end, we keep about 90% of our customers every single year. We have some clients that have been clients. We have several clients that have been clients for well longer than 30 plus years, 20 plus years. I think our average is around 7 years, and that average is brought down because there's a lot of 1-year clients that have just started with us. But when we bring on a client, they're going to be a client for life because we're going to help them to drive that revenue performance.
Yeah, I remember one stat that we had in your deck was that on your top 10 customers by size have an average longevity of 14 years.
Yeah, 14 and a half or something like that.
I've never worked with somebody like that. That is really impressive.
Yeah, it's important to us.
And so the type of clients that you serve most are large enterprise and in the media space?
Yeah, so they're in the media space for sure. Our biggest vertical is media. We expand outside of media by working with B2B clients of all kinds, but our largest category is media. And I wouldn't say that they're all enterprise. I mean, we work with radio stations, TV stations, newspaper, cable operators, outdoor, pure play digital, anyone in the business of selling an advertising solution. And sometimes those organizations are quite large with several hundreds or thousands of salespeople. And sometimes they're quite small with maybe 3, 4, 5, less than 10.
And so that we have a rough idea, what's the approximate size of CSS, either by revenue or people or something like that?
Yeah, so we have 45 full-time employees. And we are, as you know, we're a virtual company, but we've been virtual forever. This isn't a new thing for us. We're a virtual company and we have been forever. And we think that gives us a big advantage because we're not geographically bound to finding the best people. We can just find the best people.
Got it. And so you had a successful transaction in April of 22. What was the most memorable part of the process? And what do you think was the most surprising part of the process?
Yeah, good question. Good question. The most memorable part of the process. So, as you know, this wasn't our first try at a transaction, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but we had kind of been through the LOI and everything. So with this transaction that finished about a month or so ago, the biggest surprise or the most memorable part was the last 2 weeks, before close. And I just guess I never really anticipated the volume of, it seemed like everything was going along at a very nice, normal pace. And then the last 2 weeks, the flurry of information and questions and detail necessary, absolutely necessary, but that's the most memorable part for me. It was just so, and by the way, I loved it. I loved every single minute. I know I'm different than a lot of people where that would stress them out or cause them to like worry or just too much coming. I loved every second of it. Every bit of it.
Yeah, and so just to paint the picture, the Gemini team was great, right?
Absolutely.
We had Zach, we had Rob, and we had Kelsey. So they're sending emails. There's you, there's me, there's people on your team, there's David Schwinger, there's legal on the other team. And right. So it doesn't take but an email and a couple of responses for quite a flurry to heat.
That's right. You have eight or nine people all focused on getting a deal closed by a certain date. And they're not only do a lot of things have to be done, but a lot of things have to be done in a certain order of things, and that just takes a minute. And you're right. One person sends an email and 8 people reply to it.
Yeah, it jacks up pretty quick. So let's talk about that first LOI.
Yeah.
So we had an LOI from a very good partner, potential partner, and it unwound and fell apart. So can you comment as to why? And then what were your thoughts around it? How did you feel when it came apart?
Yeah, so I'll even wind it back a little bit further of how did that even start. So the way the whole thing started is, you know, I wasn't looking necessarily to do a deal originally. I running a good business, year over year growth was very good. Myself and I had a partner running the Center for Sales Strategy, and I was approached by another business, another HubSpot partner, who I had a lot of respect for, reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you ever think about kind of bringing our companies together and then going to private equity and growing this and adding on and doing all that stuff?" And honestly, I hadn't really given that much thought because I was thinking I have to buy out my partner, who was looking to start getting ready to retire. And but I said, sure, let's talk about that. Let's see what that looks like. And that's how you and I got connected.
Right.
And so we went through the LOI process. We got an LOI, and there's a component, because we work with the media, there's a component of our business where we would accept barter. A radio station or a TV station would give us commercial inventory, and then we would turn around and we would work with a company that would monetize that barter, monetize that inventory. It worked great for lots of years. It was pretty automatic. We knew exactly what that barter would convert. If it was supposed to convert to $1,000, it converted to $1,000, and we knew it. When COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, businesses closed, businesses shut down. There wasn't as much advertising going on, and one of the markets that got hit the hardest was the barter market. And all of a sudden, we were converting at a 28%. So that
instead of 100, you were converting at $28.
That's exactly right. We were expecting 100, and 28 was coming in. And when we were going through that with that other private equity, it was a difficult financial hurdle for them to wrap their heads around and come to terms with. They couldn't see it.
And I think one of the things that they were doing is looking a little bit further down the road to their debt lender.
Yes.
Because they had to sell their debt lender on it. And debt lenders tend to be a little bit, they don't have as much upside, so they're super focused on the downside.
Right.
And I think they were worried that they weren't going to be able to get that financing.
Yeah. And they were a good firm. I really enjoyed them. I'm really happy it ended the way it did, and this worked out with Gemini because I think we found the perfect partner for us. All things happen for a reason.
Agreed with that. So how do you know it's the perfect partner, right? We spoke to a few private equity groups. You had a choice from that few, and you picked Gemini. Do you remember what specifically? So just to shout out, Zach Drexler is my main contact there. His partner, Rob Mann, Kelsey was on the team as well. Why were they the team that you wanted to partner with?
Yeah. So going through it the first time allowed me to really understand the process a little bit better. Going through it the second time, I kind of felt like I was lucky that I had a dress rehearsal. And I was able to do this now with a little bit more. I knew better questions to ask. I think we originally looked at 15, or we had 15 meetings that we started the process. And I think we got 4 LOIs presented to us. And it was clear to me that Gemini was the right partner for us because I should say this, I'm active in an EO group, and other people in my EO forum have been through a transaction. And so I was able to lean on them and gain some knowledge, which was absolutely fantastic. I learned better questions to ask. I really liked the way Gemini had a track record for growing business. And I really liked the fact that Gemini saw my vision and allowed and was okay with me keeping a lot of equity in the company. As you know, I rolled forward as much as they would let me roll forward.
Yeah, so you were just to to the degree you're comfortable, you were a 50-50 partner before, and today you're in the high 40s still.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was really important to me.
And so, just so people know, it spoke volumes to Gemini that they've got a guy that knows this industry, is instrumental to the business, that wants as much equity as we'll possibly give them. Right? That's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people do a deal, they are looking to cash out, or I want to be part of the growth. I have the vision for how we're going to grow this. I have the vision for the additional services and products that we should be adding. Where I know that we are good is with organic growth. We have a good marketing and sales initiative that our company does, building our thought leadership and growing new customers and getting referrals. That we have. The piece that I was looking for was the financial partner who understood how to do due diligence the right way and how to help us to acquire businesses. And I was just blown away by Gemini and just their interaction and talking about ideas and it's just very collaborative from the jump. And I also checked references, and with Gemini, I checked 4 references, and I liked what I heard, and that was important to me.
So in a sense, you swapped out an older partner that was maybe more motivated by retirement for another partner that's more motivated for growth. What other skill sets are you hoping Gemini is going to bring to the table for you?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I started at CSS, the Center for Sales Strategy, in 2006, but I was a client of the Center for Sales Strategy for 10 years prior. So my relationship with the company started back in 1996. The guy that's my partner, I've known since 1996. We've worked really, really well together. And as he was kind of thinking about his next chapter and what he wants to do and how he wants to wind down, was about at the exact same time that I was thinking, okay, because good, I want to wind up. I want to get this thing going to an all new level, bigger than what we've ever done before. And I think now is the right time in the HubSpot partnership world. There's some opportunities there. In the sales development world, sales enablement world, there's some opportunities there. So I was excited. So the missing ingredient for me was how to successfully use debt, right? I ran a company that had no debt and was like, I didn't feel comfortable with it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to use the right financial levers. And that's not my expertise. I'm good at growing and operating. And I needed someone who could come in and give me that financial literacy and make us better there. I got a lot in here. I need a partner that is just as invested as me in growing this. And they were perfect.
Yeah. And more than just a literacy, they have the contacts, they've got debt lenders, they've got, all that kind of stuff. And the debt, if you have debt to do future acquisitions, the resources for that, there won't be any personal guarantees.
That's right.
Right. All that kind of stuff.
That's exactly right.
So now, as you sit here today, we've got a few questions in my mind. The first one is, have you noticed anything? I know it's only been a month. Have you noticed anything in a change day to day, tactically? And do you notice anything in the way that you're now able to think strategically?
So nothing day to day. And that was one of the questions that I had asked during the process. I remember someone we didn't do a deal with, but I remember asking, what does day to day might look like or anything. And the person was very, I know a ton of people and we can do it together and we can be a partner. I remember that going, oof, that's not what I want. I could see where someone would absolutely want that. That's not what I want. I have a really good executive leadership team. We run the operation very good. So I haven't noticed anything day to day. monthly reports are a little bit new. Here's the difference. There's a lot of things that I looked at all the time that were not all organized or in one place, right? I got a million things going on. So I'm constantly checking, where are we with cash, or where are we with our inventory towards capacity, or where are we towards this, or lots of things. And they've already started saying, how can we streamline that? How can we help use that information to really help us make good decisions? How can we make it so it's not so difficult to find that stuff? It's that part has been great.
So as you now think about growing the business, right? You've always grown the business organically. So now I know part of the playbook oftentimes for private equity is acquisition. What do you kind of have on your desire list in terms of fitting into your offering that that might be interesting for people to hear about?
Yeah, so there seems to be 2 or 3 areas that would be natural fits, or at least something that we should pay attention to and look into. One would be, how can we expand our services and in the inbound marketing, sales enablement, account-based marketing world. Our Lead G2 agency is fantastic. It's a diamond partner. We know it works. We know it helps businesses grow. So we're excited to grow that part of our business. Maybe if someone had expertise in an area that we're trying to grow and develop, that'd be a smart add-on. Or maybe they have some expertise in a B2B vertical that we don't have anything in, where if we could get in and we could bring the resources of the Center for Sales Strategy and Up Your Culture, that makes sense. The other,
well, what kind of verticals would that be, if we could be specific? Do you have a list or a desire?
Sure. So again, it's got to be B2B. But what about in sports, right? Sports and entertainment. There's a lot of advertising and marketing solutions that get sold inside of sports, right? When you watch the NHL hockey playoffs, and you see all the advertisers and all the dashboards, and you see all those are sales teams. They've sold that. That's not an area that we have a footprint in, but we could easily be in that area. Could also be in technical sales. Could be another area that we could just do an amazing job. We always say, if it's a business where they're looking to attract a customer, they're sell to sell again, and it's somewhat of a complex sale, that's where we're going to do our best work. That's where thought leadership is important. That's where a repeatable, predictable sales process is important. So,
as an example, somebody that's doing account-based marketing or HubSpot implementations that have B2B clients that maybe are in the arenas around sports or in the sports world or anything really from that perspective.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it could be, so let's say you were in the business of selling medical devices, right? I mean, that's B2B sales, selling medical devices. That would be a perfect vertical for us to have expertise in, is medical devices. So it's anything that's B2B, which that would be good for us. The other part of our business, though, is with the employee engagement and culture, and that's a fast growing segment that we've stood up. We have some really great intellectual property that we've created. We're looking to expand in there. So those would be, and then the last one, the third one, would be companies like the Center for Sales Strategy. There are plenty of companies out there like the Center for Sales Strategy that do what we do in other verticals, not media, right? And we've started identifying some of those and started already talking to them. And there's a lot of similarities between what they do and how they do it. People that sell commercial real estate, right? There's a firm out there. It's very similar to the Center for Sales Strategy, but their biggest vertical is that they work with people that sell commercial real estate, which is B2B. That's a natural fit.
Got it. And if somebody's listening and this sounds interesting, your contact information will be in the show notes on the website. Is it best for somebody just to reach out to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes and no. I mean, here's the thing. It should be easier just to reach out to someone directly and have a conversation with them. But we're all busy, right? And we all have a million things going on, and we probably all get inundated with emails. And I don't want to ever miss one. Let me put it that way. I don't want to miss an opportunity. The best thing someone can do is be ready for the conversation. And in order to be ready for the conversation, I recommend they talk to you. So
thank you.
But if they have someone else besides you, talk to their banker, right? Or talk to someone who can get their financials in order. They can build the financial workbook. They can build the executive story, the executive deck, because that's really what you need to start the conversation. Prior to
Great
that,
point.
there's just no there.
Yeah. And for people listening, we're certainly happy. We've got samples of a financial workbook, what that looks like, samples of a deck that describes a company. So we'd be happy to share that. Again, you can get contact information in the show notes. So if we then go back a couple of steps, when we started the process, right, and we organized your financials and we got your deck together when we did those things, was there anything surprising that you learned as we put that together? And what surprised you most about just the marketing of CFS when we were trying to find the right partner for it?
Yeah. So obviously we had never put together a financial workbook before. It's not something you do when you're just operating your business every single day. I loved it. I like the simplicity of it. I like the apples to apples comparison of being able to see it like that. The biggest aha moment, I guess, for me, or one of the big takeaways is in building that deck. So, it's like when you're a proud parent, you want to show absolutely and this is what Matt did in kindergarten, and this is what Matt did in first grade, and nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. It's like, how do you take this business, this 39-year-old business that has really grown, and how do you really boil it down to, this is who we are, this is what we do, these are the results that we get? That was harder for me to do than I would have thought. There's a famous quote. I don't remember, maybe Martin Luther. I don't remember who said it, or Mark Twain. If I would have had more time, I would have wrote a shorter letter.
Yeah.
Right.
Very well said. And again, if somebody wants a sample of a deck, I'd be happy to share one of those. And then, so any memories about when we went through due diligence and we get the LOI and then going through due diligence, anything in terms of the level of request, the level of detail that surprised you?
So, not with Gemini, but in the first, only because I had done it before. So one of the benefits of the way this whole thing worked out for us is that I had been through that process. We had already built our data room. Almost every single thing that Gemini needed, we had ready because we had been through it. So there were no surprises. I actually really enjoyed the level of detail. It allowed me to look at things a little differently too. I remember saying to you, even if these deals don't ever happen, I've learned a ton.
Right.
Through the process. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that's I hear that on almost every case, right? People understand their business better. People understand why private equity does so well because they're smart, but they've done it over and over again. So they understand, they're asking all the right questions, on and on, right?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest surprise for me was that my vision, the story I told myself of what private equity was and what it is for a business my size is completely different. My vision of what private equity is more like what you read about in the Wall Street Journal, or you see in movies like Pretty Woman, like you and I've talked about before, where they come in and these are companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of revenue, and they cut in and they slash culture and they slash expenses. They take everything out just to drive the EBITDA in the short term so they can turn it and flip it and do everything, which I get, totally understand that. I just didn't want that for my business.
Sure. And I think, that's a great point, because when you're, $2 or $3 or $4 million of EBITDA, this is a game about building more EBITDA with more people and more resources, not financial engineering where you can cut out some from production, you can cut out some from HR, right? It is a track record that Gemini has built, like many others, on building and growing.
When I got comfortable with that, that's when I was confident that this is 100% the right move for the Center for Sales Strategy to grow right now.
And I hear that, quite often from people. And, many of these over my shoulder are transactions where people have realized, wow, we can get a little bit of liquidity, but we can also get the resources, not just financial resources, but intelligence and more people power and on, to help us grow the business in important ways and to do acquisitions and everything else. Now, one of the things so in your transaction, your partner, John, is gone or will be gone, which has been part of your plan for years. So really not a whole lot has changed. But I know that every CEO that I deal with is always a little bit concerned about, when do I tell my team? And what do I tell my team? How did you think about that? And when did you introduce it to your team?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So the timetable for John to exit, retire, leave has not changed at all. What did change was how fast he was able to exit as an owner, right? But John being on the team and being part of this team growing forward is very much still in place. And that's really a tribute to John and the fact that he's been with the company for nearly 30 years, which is fantastic. Then we have this really strong executive leadership team. What I did during the process is, after the LOI was signed, the entire executive leadership team, I brought them all in, told them everything that was going on, what we were going to do.
How many for you?
6 people, including me, 6.
Okay.
I brought all of them in. I told them what I was thinking, why I was doing it, what I hoped that this would accomplish for all of us and for the company. Growth to help better serve our customers with better products and services, growth for our employees to help them to take on more responsibility. They were all in, and then all of us, all 5 others and myself, 6 of us, all of us went to Boston, and we had dinner with the team from Gemini, and we met the next day for a half day. And after we left, I shared with everybody, I shared before we went, I said, do not hold back. Do not ask a question because you're worried it could ruin something. We are who we are. We should ask every question that we have.
That's great advice.
Yeah. And I go, they're either going to like us or they're not, and we're going to like them or we're not, but let's be all in or not at all. And I told them afterwards, I said, any one of you has veto power on this thing. If anyone here doesn't think that this is a good deal, speak up, because we won't do it. It's important to me that this group of people is all in, because Todd, I don't want to do this without that group of people.
Right. But also a very interesting point that you would do that, a bold move, but none of those people had equity at the time.
At the time, none of them had equity.
Wow. What they do now.
Yeah, they do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do now, but none of them did. But I wanted their buy-in, because if we're really going to grow this thing the way I have envisioned it, and I believe we will, it's because of the people that you surround yourself with.
Right. And so what is the vision you have in your mind around growth? Sometimes people say, we're going to triple the business in 5 years. We're going to grow to 100 million. We're going to, whatever the metric is. What do you have in your mind's eye, and where's that coming from?
So I'm a bold thinker, right? And so to me, it's 5x in 5 years, which is ambitious. It's ambitious. But I think we have the team that can do it. And if we can get acquisitions the way we're planning and we're looking, and we can bring them in and do this, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do that. I feel a lot of times, companies don't have the core people that they need to grow.
Right.
I feel like that part of it I got. It's just the other things that to grow it.
Right. And so now as you get close to closing time on your transaction, the buyer usually wants to talk to your customers as well.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? And what were those calls like?
So I remember when you told me that was, and I was like, whoa, no, I don't want
fair, it's right at the end, right?
It's right at the end.
It's week before close.
Right.
The week of close.
Yeah. I wasn't worried what my customers would say to private equity. I was worried what my customers would say to me. Like, you're doing a deal with private equity. What's wrong? Why are you doing that? I was very concerned about that for no reason. I got
the pretty woman hang up that you had.
Yeah. I got, and it was all, I'm glad that they did that. I mean, ultimately, if you're good at what you do, then why would you worry about anyone talking to your customers? I mean,
right.
They should. So that all went smoothly. I should say, you asked a question before. I didn't give you all of the answer. We told our team, after the transaction happened, 1 week later, we happened to have a what we call a state of the state call planned. And so we arranged that state of the state call so that the last 30 minutes could be a town hall style meeting. And we shared with everyone what we were doing and spent 30 minutes answering all the questions that people had. Everyone's real excited about the opportunity to grow. So it went really well.
So you told your core team.
Yes.
Right after LOI signed.
Right.
And then you told everybody else a week after the deal.
After the close. Yeah.
Now, the core team, did you tell them from the first transaction as well?
Yeah.
And so they were aware that fell apart and the whole thing.
They were aware it fell apart, and they were also aware that I was going to continue to look to see if I could find the right partner. But that what I shared with them is, but you all have my commitment that if I don't find the right partner, that we won't do a deal.
And I think if we could spend just another minute on that, because that's the thing that I think scares people. I told my team, and then it didn't close for whatever reason, or they didn't like the group we have, whatever it is. And oh my God, what does that mean? But they're core people to your business. They know how to handle the bumps of business, I suspect, right?
Yeah. So I'm a transparent person. I just kind of I am who I am, and I don't mind sharing the good and the bad with people. And to me, a buddy of mine and I were talking the other day, and he was telling me about the book, The Founder's Dilemma. And I haven't read that one. So now it goes on my list. But I guess in The Founder's Dilemma, there's this paradox that founders deal with of, do they want to be king, or do they want their company to be really successful? Right.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. And I think that lifestyle businesses enjoy the owner founder kind of being the king, making every decision, doing everything runs through me. If you really want your business to scale and become super successful, then you have to relinquish some of that. And you have to have people that you can count on. And the only way to do that is to be transparent and let them in. If you don't, well, then they're never going to feel like they're part of this.
Yeah, they're part of the team. So, and I'll start to bring us to an end here. there's a lot of advice out there about doing transactions. There's a much more advice about, anything you don't get it closed, you shouldn't count on it at all. Um, what advice would you give to somebody thinking about going into this process? And would it vary at all if the ultimate buyer was private equity versus a strategic acquirer?
Yeah. So to me, and I remember when I was talking to my the folks in my forum group, I remember when I brought up the fact that we might be doing a transaction, everyone has the exact same first question. It's a great first question. Why? What are you trying to accomplish?
Mhm.
Why not just keep it the way it is? What's your motivation for wanting to do this? I think you got to get real clarity in your mind on why it is that you want to do this. For me, it was really easy. I want to grow the company. I want to grow the company so that we can better serve our current customers and with better products, better services, better companies that we can attach. And I also want to give the people that work for us an opportunity to grow. When you're a small company, the growth isn't that important because everyone knows where they are. But you start getting up to 45, 50, 60, 70 people, they want to climb the ladder. They want that growth. So to me, it was clear why I wanted to do this. Now, I did not care if it was a strategic buyer or a private equity. That would not have bothered me at all. It was more of who is in alignment with my growth trajectory.
Right. That's a great answer from that standpoint. And in addition to those things, it's also nice that that you could have a very significant upside,
Yeah.
and you were willing to bet on that, because it was also, you could have had much more off the table at close if you chose. So the reason you have close to 50% ownership is because that's what you wanted. You could
Right.
have 20 or 25% and a couple more zeros in your bank account.
As you know, I chose the partner for us that wasn't necessarily the biggest financial win for me.
Right.
There were others that valued the company higher, that offered more. I went with the company that I felt had shared the same vision of growth that I do.
That's great. So let me wrap up then with this. So, I know that you've been very successful, obviously, in your business life, but in your family life, in your community life, and on from there. Is there something that you can point to, like tangibly, whether it's an experience that you went through, or a mentor, or perhaps a book that you've read or are reading now, that you could share that would be helpful?
Yeah, I'll give you a good one. So the founder of our company is a gentleman named Steve Marks. He's passed away, but he was a do the right thing type person. And I'll give you a quick example of this that I remember, and I share with people in our company too. Early on, when I joined the company, 2006, 2007, I had a client that was assigned to me, and I was working with them, and they really were not implementing anything that we were telling them. I would go in, we'd have meetings, we'd share what they need to do, and they would all say they would, and then we'd go back a month later or 6 weeks later, and nothing was getting implemented. It was just really difficult. I remember sharing that with Steve, and Steve said, "You know what? We should tell the CEO of that company that we're not going to do business with them anymore." And I was like, I mean, what do you mean? What do you
Huge
mean?
overreaction.
What do you mean? And he's like, well, this company happens to be a very large company. And the fact that this one small division of their company is not doing what we need them to do, they're not going to get the results that they need. And ultimately, that's going to hurt us, and it's going to be a waste of money for them. Why don't you sit down with their CEO and tell them that, you know what? We're not just taking your money from you. We really want to drive results. And I thought that's an example of do the right thing, not the easy thing, right? Not the hard thing, but do the right thing. And I went to that CEO and I shared with them the situation. And the CEO said, you know what? We're going to have you help us in this other area. And I'm going to have to make some changes in this area. And it worked out fabulously. But that's just a great example of do the right thing. And then you asked about a book. And I just finished this one, Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read it, it's a must read. The quote in the book that I love is something like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems or your level of your process.
And you mentioned that to me the other day. I've ordered mine, and hopefully it'll be here soon. So this has been great, Matt, in terms of sharing. It's going to be, we're going to have to do an update in a year or two, because it'll be great to kind of track the process that you have. So we certainly wish you well. Shout out to Zach Drexler and Rob Mann as the lead partners at Gemini. Thanks to our sponsor, the people at Team Shares. Matt, thanks again for spending time, and best of luck as you head down the road to bigger, better, and faster with a 5X in 5 years.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.